Okay, we're good.
Okay, great. I'm Mona Ibrahim, Town of Windsor, and I'm co-chair, and I'm Steve Schmidt's not available today, so it's 1:31, and we'll get started with the Countywide Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee. I'll start with item 1, introductions, and I'm just going to turn it over to Dana and have her facilitate introductions.
Thanks, Mona. Nancy, could you, I think you're maybe trying to work on your, thanks, Mona. There's an echo coming through on your end. Thanks, Mona. I will just read through the list of attendees for introductions. I'm Dana Trey with SCTA. We have Drew Nichols with SCTA. Barry, I believe that's Barry with W-Trans.
Yes, it is. Got to just.
Ben Kageyama with City of Healdsburg, Chris Barney with SCTA, Chris Bearden with SMART, David Ripperda with SCTA, Elizabeth Tyree with County Regional Parks, Eris Weaver with Sonoma County Bicycle Coalition, Edie Takata, City of Rohnert Park, Janet Spillman, SCTA, JP Harris, City of Cotati, Ken Eichstadt, City of Petaluma, Mona Ibrahim, our Vice Chair from Town of Windsor, Nancy Adams, City of Santa Rosa, Orlando Ramirez, Caltrans District 4, Quinn Kelly, Tool Design, Sophia Goulier, hopefully I said that right, Tool Design, Tanya Nareth, RCPA, and Wendy Atkins, City of Sonoma. Did I miss anyone?
Right, thank you, Dana. And item 2, vote to continue this meeting via Zoom. I'll let Dana discuss this.
Yeah, so each month we have been having our board actually adopt approve continuation of our meetings via Zoom. Since we did not have and then that carries over to all of our committee meetings with SCTA and RCPA. So we did not have a board meeting this month. So therefore each committee does need to approve continuation of meetings via Zoom. So that is for this month. And I'll just read through this and then look for an action on the item. So based on California Governor's March 4th, 2020 declaration of a state of emergency due to COVID-19, which is still in effect, and the Sonoma County Public Health Officer's September 22nd, 2021 recommendation to continue teleconferencing or social distancing during public meetings, the Countywide Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee finds that the conditions continue to exist pursuant to Government Code 54953 to allow it to use teleconferencing to hold public meetings in accordance with the government code to ensure members of the public have continued access to safely observe and participate in local government. So I will just ask through our chair for a motion on this.
All right, I'll open it up for a motion regarding continuation.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay.
I'll second it.
I'm sorry. Did somebody second?
Wendy from the City of Sonoma.
Okay. All right. So first and the second, is there anything else I need to do, or are we good to move on? Okay, so item 3, approval of meeting notes. I don't think I was here at the last one, so does anybody have anything to edit or change from the meeting notes, or can someone do a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Okay, and a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. All right, item 3, public comment.
Wait a minute, you have to vote.
Oh, sorry.
Both of those things you made a motion and seconded, but nobody voted.
Oh, I didn't realize that too. Okay. Item 2. All in favor? Or
Aye.
I guess, is there anybody not in favor? Maybe that would be the most, the easiest way. I think everybody's in favor. And nobody said no, so item 3. Is there anybody either against approving of the minutes? All right, so the meeting notes are approved. And now we can go to item 4, public comment.
I see Eris Weaver with her hand up.
Thanks. Of course, you know, I always have something to say at any meeting I go to. Last week, the Bike Coalition had our annual meeting and we just celebrated our 21st year of promoting bicycling here in Sonoma County. As part of the getting ready for that meeting, which originally was going to be an in-person party, but of course ended up having to be on Zoom because of the current state of COVID. Several of us went through 21 years worth of newsletters and other memorabilia, and I kind of put together a 21 years in 3 minutes video, which is available on our website. But it was, you know, it's so easy sometimes as an activist and advocate to see what's not done and what needs to be done, but to kind of look back and see how much has been done over the last 20 years was very kind of satisfying and heartwarming to look at that. 2 other quick things. I know that one of the things on your agenda is looking at some of the different grants and fundraising stuff. All of your jurisdictions, as you're sort of, you know, looking at those things, please do keep us in mind as a potential partner. Most of this funding is not something we can ever apply for ourselves, but projects that you're doing that there is some component of outreach or education or other things that we could be part of, please do let me know. 2 things in particular that we're really interested in right now. One is we're working on a curriculum for bike-friendly driver education. So the transit departments, you know, other drivers that, you know, anyone who drives in part of the city's fleet, that we have education, because right, we can teach kids how to ride a bike and be safe all we want, but we have to get drivers behavior changed. And so that's something that we're looking at, and also looking at improving and increasing options for bicycle parking. One of the things I hear over and over again when people talk about the barriers to using a bike more for transportation is no secure place to secure their bike when they, you know, stop to do shopping or some other errand. So much of what's out there, so many places that need it just don't have any bike parking, or what's there is poorly designed or improperly installed. And so that is something that I'm very much interested in working with other partners on doing. The Lake Tahoe Bike Coalition has a regional program around getting more bike parking in, that I'm been speaking with about their model for doing that. So that's something that we're very much interested in working with people about. And I think that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Eris. Okay, then we can move on to item 5, election of officers, and Dana will discuss this.
Thank you, Mona. So the first meeting of each year, we elect a chair and a vice chair for this committee. This last year, Stephen Schmitz from Sonoma County Transit has been chair, and Mona Ibrahim from the town of Windsor has been vice chair. They swapped roles from the previous year. So the role of the chair is essentially to review the agenda before each meeting and to facilitate the meeting. We have 6 planned meetings per year. We do occasionally cancel a meeting or add an additional special meeting. So with that, happy to answer any questions about the committee, but otherwise I will open it up for nominations. If anyone is interested in serving as either chair or vice chair for 2022, or if you would like to nominate someone else in either of those positions.
Don't be shy. It's really not hard. Or volunteer, anybody who wants to volunteer?
I'd like to nominate Mona for chair.
Edie, you do that every.
Oh, I did it last time. I still mean it. I brought you on last.
No. Let's see, we've got Nancy or JP or.
Well, I'd like to nominate Edie for vice chair then.
Did that a couple years
No,
ago.
I'll second Edie's. No.
Okay.
I also haven't seen Petaluma do it.
Hey, Pete, oh, you.
I've done it. I did vice chair and chair just a few years ago.
I'll go for vice chair if
Yeah,
somebody
where's
wants to be
Ken?
chair. I'll go for
Yeah,
vice.
I'll nominate.
I'll
Ken as
second
vice chair.
Ken's,
Yeah, nominate Ken,
Nominate-
Ken for vice
self-nomination.
chair.
Pile on, everybody, pile on. Fine.
Okay, so we have Ken for vice chair. Who's going to be chair?
Who's vice chair now?
I'm
That's
vice right now. It's Stephen Schmidt. He couldn't be here today, so he's.
well, you know what happens when you don't show up when you elect officers.
Okay, I guess I nominate him also then for chair. How's that?
All right. I can arm wrestle with him if he gets. So.
Okay, great.
So just to be clear, I heard a nomination for Stephen for chair. And was there also one for Mona for chair?
Oh, I think Ken really do it. Ken sounds very willing, so.
Oh, Ken for chair.
For vice chair, I think he was saying.
Yeah, vice chair.
Okay, so what I am hearing is a nomination for Stephen Schmitz for chair and for Ken Eichstadt for vice chair. Is that correct? All right, and let's do, since those are the only two on the table, we could, I guess, do a vote together.
All in favor? Or raise your hands, or. I can't see everybody on the screen, but I think there are no. I think that sounds good. Do we need to do anything else, Dana?
I maybe just ask if there's any opposed.
Any opposed? No one is opposed. All right.
I do see Nancy Adams' hand up. Oop, there it went.
Did Nancy want to say something or no?
No, I don't think so now.
Her hand may have been up from earlier.
Oh.
Okay, well,
Yeah. I'm guys, I'm having a unmute issue with my laptop, so bear with me. I'm good.
all right, thank you, Nancy. So will that just take place next do we have to vote on it some more, or is it just how it goes for next meeting?
That sounds resolved to me. And so, unless Stephen doesn't accept the nomination, then he will chair the next meeting.
All right, thank you, Dana.
Thank you.
Item 6, SCTA, RCPA meeting schedule for 2022. Dana?
Yeah, so in your agenda packet on page 7 of the PDF is a schedule of all the SCTA and RCPA meetings proposed for the calendar year. CBPAC is sort of in the middle of that schedule in teal and showing the proposed meeting dates. So this is just for your information.
Any questions? All right, none. Seeing none. Item 7, planning and policy 7.1. I believe then we have a discussion. I don't know if there's a presentation for the from Tool Design, Quinn Kelly of the draft Sonoma County Vision Zero Action Plan and Workshop Notice. So I will let you take it over, Quinn.
Hi, sure. Yeah, thank you. I saw that you all have a lot on your agenda, so I'm going to keep this presentation a little bit abbreviated from its usual form. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, great. So yeah, happy to be here today. We've been sort of making the tour of, local and county level committees and boards as we start to, move this Vision Zero action plan from first draft into second draft and finally into its final form, which will be wrapping up at the end of February. So yeah, just some quick background, why Vision Zero? Well, obviously, traffic crashes are terrible. Traffic crashes killed 176 people in Sonoma County and left nearly 1,000 more with life-changing injuries over the past 5 years. So this plan really, makes the case for Vision Zero using, quantitative as well as qualitative data. So this map, for example, shows the location of every fatal crash during 2020. And we also want to show how Vision Zero complements related efforts around mobility justice, environmental justice, economic development, and greenhouse gas reduction. Basically makes Sonoma County roads safer and more accessible for everyone, making it easier to walk, bike, or take public transportation to access jobs and services. And I also want to emphasize that, this Vision Zero plan, as you saw in the intro slide, is a partnership between SCTA and the Department of Health. And it's a bit unique in that regard. We're taking, a public health approach that really seeks to address the root causes of traffic fatalities and injuries rather than just the symptoms. So this slide, shows you how the fundamental differences between Vision Zero and the more traditional approach to traffic safety. Vision Zero focuses on severe and fatal crashes, and it recognizes that these crashes don't affect all communities equally. It recognizes that human drivers are imperfect and we have to plan for that. And it strives for collective responsibility through a safe systems approach. So these are the top 4 crash factors in Sonoma County. Impaired driving, nearly a quarter of crashes were caused by someone operating a vehicle under the influence of drugs or alcohol. Unsafe turns, so these are when drivers make unpredictable movements, often without reasonable warning. Unsafe speed is a huge factor and increases both the risk of a crash and the likelihood that a crash will result in severe injury or death. Finally, right-of-way violations, which occur when a driver or other road user breaks the rules that determines who goes first and who yields. So these crash factors have a lot to do with driver behavior, but they're also heavily influences by street design. And so basically what we're doing here is trying to take this data and use it to identify appropriate countermeasures, whether that's traffic calming, signal modifications, whatever it may be, that is specifically targeted toward addressing these crash factors. So I include this graphic to really bring home the point about speed. I'm sure many of you have seen a version of this before. As you can see, a vehicle traveling 20 miles an hour that hits a person walking has a 10% chance of killing or severely injuring them, compared to a 70% chance for a vehicle traveling at 40 miles an hour. So this is the Sonoma County High Injury Network. It was developed through a systematic analysis of the road network and the crash data, and examining the location, frequency, severity, and mode of crashes along the road network. So it's used to identify areas where safety investments should be prioritized. This last fall, we also collected feedback from nearly 2,500 community members through an online survey. And when asked about the most important traffic safety issues facing Sonoma County, the top 3 responses were poorly maintained roads, bike lanes, and sidewalks, speeding, and distracted driving. So this feedback also helped us to develop specific goals and actions designed to address these issues. This plan also delves into the equity implications of Vision Zero. We look at the inequitable access to transportation and housing that results in disparities in crash victims across race, socioeconomic status, travel mode, and geography. And the plan gets a lot more into that. I'm going to sort of keep things moving for the sake of brevity. But you can see this map overlays the high injury network with the equity priority communities. And you can see there's quite a high degree of correlation between these geographies. We also talk a little bit about how different communities are affected unequally by traffic enforcement, and sort of use those realities to help inform the type of actions that we are proposing. So the next section of the plan is the goals and actions, and they're organized around these 6 overarching goals. And for each of these, I've included a sampling of some of the actions included in the plan. I neglected to mention we have a big public workshop happening this evening. And so these actions are not currently prioritized, but following this public workshop, we're planning to start coming up with a prioritization for some of these actions, because we have quite a lot proposed in the plan right now, and we want to identify what are the top priorities. So keep that in mind also as we move through here, if you have some ideas for what those should be. So the first big goal is about creating safer speeds. So it's important to note that this is not just about drivers traveling above the speed limit. It's also about some roads just have speed limits that are perhaps higher than they should be. And travel speeds of 40 to 45 miles an hour, as we saw earlier, show a notably elevated rate for severe injury and fatal crashes. So 2 main actions related to speed. Proposing for each jurisdiction to review the speeds and posted limits along the high injury network, set appropriate speeds, and implement speed mitigation measures based on findings and legislative authority. We're also sort of proposing to leverage some of the newfound jurisdiction that local cities will have over speed limits to potentially reduce some speed limits to 25 or even under where appropriate, such as areas around schools, parks, senior centers, and transit stations. Impaired driving is another major crash factor that we're hoping to address with this plan. This is about curbing impaired, creating transportation alternatives for people who are consuming alcohol, and also preventing those with the pattern of impaired driving from getting behind the wheel. So here are some of our actions proposed to eliminate impaired driving. I won't go through all of these. creating a culture of safety. We also have a lot of actions under this goal. A lot of these actions focus on youth and young drivers to help develop the next generation of responsible road users. And it targets dangerous driving behavior that contributes to all 4 of the top crash factors. Again, I'm happy to go back to these, but to keep things brief, I'll just keep moving. The next broad goal is building and maintaining safe streets for all. So this goal is identified as the most important step toward Vision Zero by 67% of the survey respondents. This is about applying appropriate street design treatments and engineering countermeasures that have been proven to reduce the quantity and severity of crashes, ranging from simple things like attaching reflective object markers to more complex facilities like raised crosswalks and traffic circles. We have 12 actions under this goal right now, including these here. Again, I'm gonna keep things moving. The next goal is about making vehicles safer. So a lot of this is about fairly simple retrofits, such as adding side guards for large trucks that reduce the risk of death or serious injuries for pedestrians or cyclists who are caught in the right hook from turning trucks. And it's also about county and local governments staying ahead of developments with autonomous vehicles to make sure they prioritize the safety of vulnerable road users. And then finally, improving data for effective decision making. So Sonoma County has taken a big step toward improving data with the Vision Zero data dashboard. And as part of this plan, we want to identify ways to further improve that data and get it into the hands of decision makers. So some of this is about getting new sources of data, such as data from hospital trauma centers, and some of it is about training law enforcement officers to do effective crash reporting, specifically around the unique attributes required to accurately understand crashes involving bicyclists, pedestrians, and other vulnerable road users. So this Vision Zero action plan represents a commitment to initial set of actions addressing Sonoma County's highest priority safety issues. It's going to require collaboration between all the key implementers, as well as other supporting organizations and government agencies. And we'll be using the Vision Zero website as well as the data dashboard to evaluate the efforts and track our progress toward Vision Zero goals. This is what you see here on the left is a snapshot from the Vision Zero webpage, which includes some interactive maps already and will soon include even more. So for jurisdictions, we're including a sample resolution that they can bring before city councils to really commit to this work. And we're going to be collecting additional comments at this email address here, info@scta.ca.gov. We're going to be releasing the next draft of this plan on February 7th. And then we'll have a public comment period that lasts from then until the 21st of February, after which we'll be finalizing the content into the final action plan. We're also going to be actually, this is already live on SCTA's website, Vision Zero Pledge, which is something that individuals can do to also commit to their small part in making Vision Zero a reality. And so I invite you all to take that pledge at scta.ca.gov/vz/pledge. So yeah, that's all I have for you today. And I welcome any comments or questions.
I'll start, Quinn. Thank you very much for the presentation. So there's going to be a draft report coming out on the 7th, and then comments back to you on the 21st.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'd sent the last draft to police and fire and City Hall, but there really wasn't enough time for them to kind of look at it. And I really want to make sure, if we're serious about this and we want to pass a resolution, I need to make sure that I sort of educate the folks at the city and the various departments on it. So I assume that you're going to put a link up. How do you want to see the comments come to you, and how is this going to work to make sure that we get the best input from all city departments?
Yeah, so I mean, we're definitely welcoming all comments on an ongoing basis. There is, a draft of the plan posted on SCTA's website right now. And I would just ask, the best place to send any and all comments would be to that address I showed earlier, info@scta.ca.gov. I'll put that in the chat as well. Oh, Janet already did it. And yeah, you're welcome to send comments now based on the draft that's out. But I would recommend waiting until the updated draft comes out on February 7th, because that way we won't get, because we've gotten a lot of good comments already that we've been addressing on an ongoing basis. So that way we don't have redundant comments of things that have already been addressed.
Thank you.
I see Edie's hand up.
Yeah, it's what was it included in the CBPAC packet? Is that the latest draft that is about to be sent out, or is this a prior draft and there's a?
Yes, that's a prior draft. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, we've gotten a lot. We've been, as I said, we've been presenting to different committees on an ongoing basis over the last couple of months, and we've been getting a ton of really good feedback already that we've been incorporating into that. And so we're still working on compiling all of that into the next draft that will be coming out on the 7th.
Okay, thanks.
And I see Eris Weaver has her hand up as well.
You ready for public comment, or do you want the actual members to go first?
Elizabeth? Thank you, Janet. And thank you for the report today. This is a terrific report. I had a chance to go through it some before this meeting. I have a technical question. Would you describe what a side guard is? I'm not clear on what that is on heavy vehicles.
Yeah, so we did put in a little illustration of it on that slide, just so folks could get a sense of what we're talking about. Oh, let me share my screen again. So this, this is a side guard. So it's a pretty common measure that's been included in a lot of Vision Zero efforts across the country. Basically, you've probably seen a sign on the back of trucks that say, trucks make wide turns. What tends to happen, unfortunately, sometimes is that bicyclists or pedestrians who are crossing, on the sidewalk or in the bike lane to the right of a truck, the driver isn't necessarily able to see them, or doesn't, or they come on as the truck is already turning, and these side collisions are often fatal for cyclists and pedestrians. So this side guard is basically, it keeps those users from being pulled underneath the rear wheels of the truck, which is almost always a fatal crash type.
Thank you.
I see Eris and Nancy have their hands up. I think Eris was next.
Okay, I really had more of a comment rather than a question. I spent this whole concept is very dear to my heart. I spent this morning actually in the courtroom with the family and friends of the one cyclist who was killed and one who was maimed by a drunk driver in Sebastopol back in May. So I guess, I've been involved with the whole process from the beginning, and as it's getting close to this end, my fervent hope is that each of the jurisdictions are going to actually take this and embrace it and go beyond just passing a resolution and doing business as usual to really incorporate this concept into everything that you do. Thanks.
Nancy?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I just had a question. So is this going to go to the SCTA board? And I thought somewhere I saw that, but if yes, then when is it going to the board for review, and what's that process look like?
Janet, correct me if I say the wrong thing, but I believe the draft is going to the board on the 14th of February, and then the final will be going to the board on the 14th of March.
That's right.
So I guess then, because I know we wouldn't get anything to our council for any kind of review for them at a draft level. So I guess then the expectation is that that your board of directors, who represents all the cities in the county, will take an action before it goes to the individual councils. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay.
Dana, are there any other hands up?
I do not see any other hands up.
Okay, no other comments. That was great. Thank you again for the presentation. I have a quick question. Do you have a lot of people signed up for the workshop tonight?
As of this morning, we had 89 registrants. So.
That's great.
Wow.
Okay. Thank you. Oh,
Gwen, can I just ask if that workshop this evening is going to be recorded?
Janet?
The workshop tonight? Yeah, I assume it is. Is it not?
We certainly can record it if that's what you all would like. Yeah.
I got a question about it from someone, so I just wanted to know. Thank you.
I've received a couple questions about that too, about it being recorded.
Okay.
I'd like to see it recorded because I won't be able to attend the meeting tonight.
Let's record it.
All right.
and then will the recording be available on the SCTA website?
Sure.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. All right, we will move on to 7.2 MTC Regional Active Transportation Network discussion with Dana.
Yeah, so I'll kick this off. So earlier this month, January 6th, I sent out a link to a draft active transportation network that MTC is putting together as part of their regional network, and asking for comment on the draft network map. Comments are due at the end of this month, which is Monday, January 31st. That's coming up. Many of you were at the Active Transportation Working Group meeting last Thursday, where this draft map was reviewed and presented. But I wanted to also make sure that the information is in this agenda and that we have a chance to discuss it as a group. I've also offered to MTC, as some of the other county transportation authorities have, to summarize comments for our county and highlight any or elevate any concerns or kind of more general comments that come up. So generally, I want to make sure that people understand the kind of basis for development of this active transportation network. I'm going to actually just share my screen and quickly go through MTC's slides that I included in the agenda. So bear with me one moment. Oops. Get on the right slide here. Sorry. Okay. All right, here we go. Can everyone see my screen? Great. So here is the vision and mission statement, which you all can read on your own, is what is expected. The criteria for developing this active transportation network is focused around equity, mode shift, and safety. So this is a little different from the previous regional active transportation network. So is really focused around connections to equity priority communities, as well as planned development areas, connections to mobility hubs, also looking at connections to major regional destinations, incorporating the high injury network, and also focusing on low stress connections. MTC is in the process of building the regional network, and that's the phase they're in right now. They'll also be analyzing the network, including the connectivity, high injury network, and the level of traffic stress, identifying gaps, and then developing cost assumptions. Here is the timeline for this draft network, active transportation network, with comments due January 31st, as I mentioned. And then I'll stop sharing here, as that's the end of that item. So I just really wanted to bring it to everyone's attention. I have not seen too many comments come in on the web map. There is one thing that I wanted to ask generally. Some of the other North Bay counties, since we have more dispersed populations, there's less of a true network that shows up on the map. And some of the other counties we're looking at advocating for including the BATSI, the Bay Area Trails Collaborative Network, as part of the active transportation network. And that's something I wanted to hear from you all, if that is something that you think would be a good idea to include in the regional active transportation network. It shows up on the map, and it is a little bit confusing. That layer's not on initially, you have to turn it on. But just because it's there, it doesn't mean that it's actually proposed as part of the network currently, or that all of it is. So it's those thick lines that are on the map that are proposed pieces of the network. So I would love to hear your feedback on that, as well as any other kind of high level concerns you have, or things that you think need to be included. I did see some comments on data errors, which are great to have. I don't think that's something we necessarily need to elevate in terms of existing facilities that don't show up on there. That's something we could definitely work with MTC to correct, but it's not very high priority feedback right now. Right now, I think we really need to let MTC know if there's anything missing that really should be included in the active transportation network, or if maybe there's any errors that you think to what they are proposing to be part of the network. So yeah, I see some hands raised. Ken?
Yeah, thank you, Dana. I went in and put in Lynch Creek Trail for Petaluma because they didn't really have any of the trails, and I need to go through and put in the other, basically a lot of sort of levee roads, and they're not necessarily hardscape yet. They're not necessarily concrete or asphalt, but they're great trails. And there's they're very pedestrian and bike friendly. And we're improving them. So on Petaluma's end, we need to just get that information in there, and I've got it on my list to go do. And I definitely think we should have Batsy and involve Barry Ridge Trail and their work, and all that should be in that this effort. Thanks.
Thank you, Ken. Edie. Oh, I think you're on mute, Edie.
That's what I can. That makes sense to me. But it also sort of speaks to why I am going to put comments and input in, but I'm struggling with the things like gaps that are just because we haven't got facilities or proposed facilities or twinkling of an eye facilities in any adopted plan that have emerged, facilities, proposed facilities that would come out in a plan. So we're going to be putting in, almost wishful thinking kinds of facilities, low stress. I mean, we certainly, at the time that we did our master plan, I don't even know if low stress was an actual thing, which to be now, and those would be routes that are not going to be in a plan. So is this something I should ask Kara about, whether that's appropriate, or just do it and see what happens?
In terms of adding routes that are in a plan. Yeah, so I don't think there's, you can certainly reach out to Kara about that. I don't think there's any reason why you could not do that. What MTC's active transportation plan is recommending, they basically have on-street and off-street recommendations. And for the on-street recommendations, this is tied to their complete streets policy, which we'll talk about next, that they're working on updating. And so essentially that complete streets policy is saying that if there is a roadway project that is seeking discretionary funding through or endorsement through MTC that is on the regional active transportation network, that the complete streets recommendations be implemented with that project. So if it is an on-run facility, that would be a required piece of the project. Then there are some exemptions proposed, which we'll talk about next. But so I guess if it's not in an adopted plan, that's a consideration to take into account. And for the on-street regional active transportation network, it would need to also meet design requirements or design guidelines that accommodate all ages and abilities. And leaving that open what that is, but it's not saying what type of facility to design for, but it would need to meet those design guidelines.
This is important to hear because it actually then will make a difference whether we put it in or not.
Karis?
To the question of whether to put all of the stuff that's on the Batsy trail list into the active transportation plan, my understanding is that a chunk of what's on that in the part of the Batsy trail network are recreational trails as opposed to transportation. So right, and I guess I define so for example, we've got My bike map has trails in Annandale that people love to mountain bike on, which is for recreation, but they're not trails you would use to get from point A to point B, which is how I would define a transportational route. So putting everything that's on the BATSI network of trails, to me, doesn't make sense necessarily to put all of it in the active transportation map, because some of it is not transportational. Does that make sense?
Thanks, Eris. And the MTC's plan does point out that opportunities for recreation be included. It doesn't specifically say that recreational trails be included, but I think it's more like an access to open space and regional trails. But maybe there is some way to make a recommendation for including the portions of the BATSI network that are for transportation.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, like, for example, at Runner Park, right? They're working on to do a trail that connects the city up to Crane Creek Regional Park. So the trail that goes, the path that goes up there, to me seems transportational because it allows you to get from town to the park, but the trails in the park, to me, are purely recreational. So, that's kind of the thing I'm thinking about there.
Yeah, thank you. That makes sense. Ben.
I had added, well, in Healdsburg, we don't have any equity priority community in Healdsburg, but I did add on the map our Foss Creek pathway within the city, because I do believe a case could be made that it's connecting two equity priority areas in Santa Rosa and Windsor, and it is part of an important transportation corridor.
Yeah, that's a good comment. Thank you, Ken. All right, are there, Mona?
Oh, I was just gonna say, are there any other questions or comments? And if not, then we'll lead into 7.3, the MTC Complete Streets Policy and Checklist Updates.
Great. So I'll just add quickly on the last item that I will take a look at this. I'll look at the comments again, on the last day of the comment period, just to make sure I could include anything that anyone puts in as a summary to MTC. All right, so for the Complete Streets policy update, I included in your agenda packet, starting on page 88 of the PDF, the proposed policy update, as well as a pages from the presentation that was given at the Active Transportation Working Group meeting last week. I'm going to share my screen again and just take a look at the pages from MTC's presentation. So essentially, there's the draft update is basically for all public right-of-way projects funded through regional discretionary funding or seeking MTC endorsements shall implement complete streets as recommended in recently adopted plans. And if a proposed project is located on the regional active transportation network, it must include recommended complete streets design standards referenced in the plan. So that is the all ages and abilities, safety for all ages and abilities. So you can see here that existing complete streets policies as opposed to the updated. So rather than having shall consider, that would change it to shall implement. And the other elements that we just discussed, and also including prioritization for equity priority communities. So I just included a few visuals here, moving from scenarios like this to implementation of facilities for all ages and abilities. And then in terms of implementation and exceptions, the MTC is proposing using the definition from FHWA and making exceptions where roadways prohibit bicycle and pedestrian users, where costs would be excessively disproportionate to a project if the complete streets elements were implemented. And the other exception being if there is an alternative plan to implement complete streets on a specific corridor seeking funding from MTC. So I will go ahead and stop sharing and just open it up for discussion or comments. I see Nancy's hand up.
I'm on mute again. Holy moly. Gosh, my mute button's giving me fits. Yeah, so I listened to the, am I good now?
Yes.
Yeah. Good. Okay. So yeah, I listened to the meeting last week, and so I thought somebody brought up a really, I thought an interesting point on that first one where it says shall consider versus shall implement. I think there's some merit to some of the concerns that the individual, I don't know, but that's a pretty quantum leap. And not often do we, we certainly try to implement, but there are things that make it not achievable. So I don't know if there's a way to bridge that, right? I think, and the desire to move it to a more stronger statement, but I think there may be some middle ground. That's in my mind a pretty quantum leap for jurisdictions to be required to, and I read that as to be required to. So I would echo that comment here with my colleagues here locally.
Thank you. I see Eris's hand up.
So that one slide that talked about, I don't know why my green screen is going all fuzzy, about the exception for disproportionate cost based on ridership makes me a little queasy. Right, because that's one of the things we're always talking about. Oh no, it costs too much to give bikes and peds what they want or what they need. And so I would want a definition there, like what is inappropriate or overly too high of a proportion. And then when it says based on current ridership, I think it said, if you're making a street improvement, you can't base the need for it based on current ridership, because if it's so scary, people aren't riding on it now, and you make it safer, then they will ride on it. Basing it on the current usage is completely counterproductive to what we're attempting to do with the whole concept of complete streets. So that I would strike out that thing based on current ridership, and I would want a clearer definition on the proportionality of I mean, we already spend too high of a proportion of all of our transportation dollars on things that make it easier for people to drive individual cars too fast. So I don't think there's anything we could spend on bikes that would be that would counter the proportionality, given how far we've been going the other way.
Thanks, Harris. I'll just also clarify that MTC is taking comments on this policy, I believe also through January 31st. So I definitely encourage everyone to submit comments to MTC on this. And I think that your point was discussed at the last active transportation meeting, Eris, about defining that what based on current ridership means, and especially when there is no current ridership due to safety or access. And then in terms of what I heard from MTC in terms of that disproportionate cost, I think what they're considering is 20% above what a project would cost without the complete streets element.
All right, Dana, do you have any other hands?
I don't see any other hands up.
All right, thank you, Dana. And then 7.4, the Caltrans Director's Policy on Complete Streets Information.
Yeah, so in your agenda packet on page 107 of the PDF, I included Caltrans's Director's Policy on Complete Streets, which was adopted on December 7th. So the policy directs all transportation projects funded or overseen by Caltrans to provide comfortable, convenient, and connected complete streets facilities for people walking, biking, and taking transit or rail. So, and then it also says that when decisions are made not to include complete streets elements in capital and maintenance projects, the justification will be documented with a final approval by a district director. And it does specify some exceptions in, and it includes projects that are located where bicycles and pedestrians are legally prohibited, and projects with this very specific constrained scope or performed outside of a roadbed. So I just wanted to bring this to everyone's attention and make sure that you've taken a look at it and consider it when working on projects partnering with Caltrans.
All right, thank you, Dana. If there are no questions, we'll move on to item 8, funding. 8.1 TDA 3 preliminary call for projects FY 22-23.
All right, thanks, Mona. So in your agenda packet is a preliminary call for projects for the Transportation Development Act Article 3 program for our fiscal year 22-23. This preliminary call for projects is being put out with estimates on TDA 3 funds from the county auditor. And I put it out with these estimates ahead of MTC's fund estimate to give you all time to plan for your applications for TDA 3 projects and meet the timeline that we've put out there. So I will be putting out an official call for projects, which will basically just have some updates to the funding estimate, which is on the second page of the call for projects. They're generally minor adjustments due to interest and prior year adjustments that MTC puts in their fund estimate. So what you see in this preliminary call should be pretty close, and so that you can plan for your project applications using these numbers. So as a reminder to everyone, the way that we do TDA 3 in Sonoma County is that the funding is allocated to each jurisdiction based on their population share, and any unused funds will be carried over into future calls for projects. And so you can essentially bank funding for as long as you desire to. Although we do encourage applications for projects when there's sufficient funding for your jurisdiction. We also do allow folks to advance funds, essentially borrow ahead for up to 2 years of their projected entitlement for the current year. And this helps smaller jurisdictions to apply for projects when they have small amounts for each year. So we are we'll be issuing an official call for projects likely the first week of February, and we are looking for applications by March 10th, and we'll bring this back to the CBPAC on March 22nd for review and ask for a recommendation. We are giving some additional time for any council or board adopted resolutions, and are just asking for the application by March 10th. So that should give some time for folks to go through that process and get on agendas. And then the SCTA board will consider the entire program of projects for the county at their May 9th board meeting. And at that point, once that's approved, we'll submit it to MTC, and funding should be available by July 1st. So there are links in the preliminary call for projects for the model resolution and project application form, as well as MTC's resolution on the TDA Article 3 program. And I see Nancy's hand up.
Yeah.
You're on mute right now.
I know. Is that a current link for all the documents that are current on MTC's website?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Thanks. Yeah, another thing that Nancy, could you mute again? Sorry, I'm echoing. Another thing I wanted to mention is that when SCTA put out our 5-year funding plan call for projects last fall, and did include TDA Article 3 in the overall picture that we're looking at. This year we're doing a regular call for projects, but we may consider looking at a 4-year funding plan next year during the next cycle to match up with that 5-year funding plan. and looking at TDA3 funding as a match to some of the larger projects that were submitted through that, that funding plan call for projects. So I just wanted to give you a heads up to start thinking about that for future years, for consideration of those larger projects with your funding. Does anyone else have any questions about the TDA3 program?
Thank you, Dana. Then we'll move to the TDA3 TFCA quarterly report.
Right. So this is the quarterly report for all TDA3 and TFCA, which is the Transportation Fund for Clean Air, projects through the end of December, so Q2. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again and just focus on the current TDA3 projects. There are a handful of projects here highlighted in red. Those projects all have funding that is expiring on June 30th. So if those are your projects, please take that expiration date into consideration. We're not able to do extensions of for projects for TDA3. Although if your project does come in under budget, any balance will roll into your jurisdiction's pot of funding for future funding cycles. And then we don't have any open projects under TFCA that are coming up on expiration. So I'll leave that off. If anybody has any questions about this quarterly report or the projects on there, please let me know.
Okay, item 8.3, active transportation plan cycle 6 best practices discussion.
All right, so in your agenda, I included some guidance from MTC on best practices for submitting complete and competitive applications for the active transportation program, as well kind of a roadmap for submittals. And I did send that out to this group earlier. I just wanted to make sure that everyone had it. And just kind of as a general update on the timeline, MTC's guidelines are set to be adopted for the regional ATV program February 22nd, and the CTC guidelines are expected to be approved on March 16th. At that time, the statewide and regional call for projects would go out, and applications be due on June 15th. So we have just wanted to bring that up to everyone's attention. And then if anyone wants to discuss projects they're considering, or the program in general, it would be great to hear from folks. And so I'll just open it up and turn it back over to our chair.
Any comments? Okay. So should we move on to the next item, Dana? Or did you have something in 8.3.1, or is that just part of your 8.3?
Nope, that's just a link to the schedule and funding information, so everyone has it at their in front of them. Thanks.
Item 9 are updates, roundtable discussion.
If you'd like, I can call on jurisdictions, Mona, or?
Sure.
Okay. Let's start with Healdsburg.
Thanks, Dana. For Healdsburg, we're moving ahead with our wayfinding sign project. We expect to have the installations in the next within the next couple of weeks. Those are going to be wayfinding signs primarily along the Foss Creek pathway, and also our electric bike share project. We've submitted the request for authorization and to Caltrans, and we're going through the environmental approval process currently. That's it.
Thank you. Regional parks.
Thank you, Dana. Just to let folks know, on the 20th, we submitted an application to fund construction of a section of one of the North Coast trails. This would provide a 1.1 mile trail north of Salt Point State Park, going north, parallel and off of Highway 1. So excited to be thinking about moving forward with that. And then for everybody's busy meeting schedule tonight, Caltrans Bay Area is having a public meeting, inviting people to comment on State Route Highway or State Route 37. Of course, Regional Parks advocates for a Class 1 trail along this corridor as a connection for Bay Trail. So that's tonight at 5:30, so just before Vision Zero starts at 6. And I can forward this information if folks don't have that. And that's all I have.
Thank you. City of Sonoma.
Hi. Well, some of you may have heard that earlier this month, the City Council reconsidered how Broadway is going to be restriped. And unfortunately, well, I shouldn't say that. They decided to change their plan from a Class 1 path to a Class 2 path. So the good news is we're still getting bike lanes on Broadway, and they've actually started putting down the temporary lines to restripe that. So that's all the update I have.
Thank you. Petaluma.
Thank you, Dana. We've got the Sleepy Hollow portion of Lynch Creek Trail that's in construction. That's up at Sonoma Mountain Parkway going into Prince Park, and it's just a degraded concrete pathway, but we're going to go in and refurbish that. The bike share, as Ben had mentioned in Healdsburg, we're kind of in the same stage with bike share and going through the last iteration of implementation for Petaluma. And then our Petaluma Boulevard South Road Diet, that work from the roundabout at Crystal Lane all the way to D Street, we're started that. That work is in construction, and in conjunction with that, we're looking at a bike boulevard on 5th Street so you could get off the buffered bike lanes on coming into the south part of Petaluma and then head over into downtown on a bike boulevard on 5th Street. And then we're in the midst of our general plan revision, but also our active transportation plan. So that's going on right now. And then we've got a community meeting on the North McDowell Complete Streets tomorrow night, and trying to get the community input, public input on that. Need to find a little bit of money and move that project forward into construction hopefully this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Roner Park.
Stay away from Commerce in Southwest. We're putting in that roundabout. It looks like we will be, we could be done in June. It's a 6-month project, so addressing traffic safety, slower speeds, it's all good. And the only other thing I can think of right now that's on my mind anyway is a funding agreement we're working with the Open Space District. We are partners with regional parks to get that trail from Roner Park to Crane Creek. Now, if we can just convince TPW, anybody here from that we don't need a ramp to nowhere on the other side of Pet Hill. So anyway, sorry, I digress. Thanks.
Thank you. Smart, Chris, did you want to do an update on Smart?
Thank you, Dana. No, I don't have any updates right now. We're got our new general manager on board, Eddie Cummins, and really just been working on data calls, bring them up to speed.
Thank you. Katati.
Thanks, Dana. Few things, teeing off of Edie's comment about the roundabout. We also just kind of kicked off a little bit of what we're calling that commerce gateway planning there, which we want to integrate and kind of tee off of the good work that they're doing there. And there will be some pedestrian crossing of the Laguna there to get over to the neighborhood along Southwest in Roner Park, and just kind of improve that whole intersection there. So that was just kicked off. It's in the very kind of gathering, initial comments, internal comments stage about what we want to see. We do have an active sidewalk / not quite a class 1 bike lane project going in on West School Street. This will allow pedestrian access and down to kind of where that West Sierra Highway 101 interchange is. Right now, you have to walk on the street to get into the West County, the West Side neighborhood up there, but they'll soon have a sidewalk bike trail kind of facility. There's not a lot of room there, so we have to make some compromises. What else? Oh, our kiosks are finally going in. So those are actually going in the ground. This is the last stage of our pedestrian wayfinding. So these are more substantial kind of, stone-based kiosks with interpretive panels. Some of the work that we were doing on the interpretive panels, we passed it around to some people and got fairly substantial comments. So now the panels are going up and the kiosks are going up, but we decided we need to do a lot more work on the interpretive panel stuff. And some of it's just history, and some of it has to do with natural history along the Laguna or cultural history. Anyway, that's causing some delays, but you can see the kiosks. The kiosks will be up. They're just going to be blank for a couple months, it looks like. But I think they look really good, what I've seen. I mean, they're not completed yet. It's just the bases, but I'm excited about it. I don't think that's about it for now. Thanks.
Thank you. And Santa Rosa.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks,
I think you're
Dana.
on.
So you're back, good. So we're at 9 on bike and ped enhancements. That's the TDA Article 3 project that we have for design. So that's should be finished up, and we should be going out to bid on that this summer into construction. So that's good to hear. we did complete as part of our PPM and slurry contract, buffered bike lanes on Hohen and Summerfield and Bethards. And I'm missing one street, but that's okay. And then we're at 35% on the bike ped overcrossing for design. So that's moving along. And about, I don't know, about 65% on, we've got an OBAG 2, it's a pavement rehab for Range and Hearn, and we're going to be adding some bike lanes and a small segment of piece of Range buffered bike lanes as well. So that's at about 65%. And let's see, the scooters. So in December, I was there until after midnight. So it was a 2-day affair, literally. A lot of questions. I was amazed at how many questions they had about our set of conditions and permit for this pilot scooter program. So with all the questions, they were very supportive of it. They did actually want to increase our fleet size. Staff had originally only anticipated 100 maximum for the number of devices, but they wanted to increase it to 200. So that was a change in the, in a positive for sure. So my next step is I need to go back to the council to get some existing ordinance language, which oddly enough prohibits scooters on public streets. So we need to clean that up and get that back to the council. So I'm trying to figure that out and maybe get there early spring. But in the meantime, we can still solicit for a vendor, and we are only going to have one vendor as part of this pilot. So, and it'll run for 12 months. So we're going to run that simultaneously. We just can't hire the vendor until we get the ordinance language cleaned up with council action. So that's exciting. And I guess the last thing I want to mention is we're moving forward on our corridor plans. We had a little bit of a hiatus here, but we've got them back on track, and we're having our community meeting on February 2nd for College, 4th Avenue, and then we're going to have another one. College, 4th, and Montgomery. Sorry, that's on the February 2nd, and then Dutton Avenue is March 2nd. So those are part of our local road safety plans that we're working on with. I think some of the other cities are doing that as well. So that's kind of neat. And then we'll be looking at moving some of those potentially improvements along through the next steps. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. And SCBC, do you have an update on you want to share on the Safe Routes to School program?
Well, I don't have.
I'm here. I'm Tina.
Okay.
Iris, you have something to say?
No, I didn't realize. I hadn't seen that you were here. Go ahead. I gotta go get into the meeting right now anyway.
Because the sun's shining really strong. You probably just see a big strong beam of sun. But Safe Routes to School is we're still doing our monthly challenges. So just to let you all know that our challenge that starts in February is we're going to do walk and roll for our hearts again, and we're having an art contest. And we're going to do a calendar again, which was super popular last year. And you can see that last year's winning calendar entries on our website. If you go up there right now, they're so cute from last year. And March, we actually got a sponsorship from Kaiser, so we're excited. We're doing March for Miles, which is like a mileage contest where kids can let us know how many miles they travel to and from school or anywhere, any day in March, on a little calendar worksheet that we created. And in April, we're having an Earth Month challenge, which is going to be just a transportation-based Earth Month challenge. So kids can pick one, 2, 3, or 4 of 4 actions to do during the month of April. And then we are doing we are celebrating National Bike to School Day. We're going to try to make it a countywide event. We have our 43 comprehensive schools that have been doing walk and roll days every month or most months this year, but we're going to try to expand again since we didn't have extra schools participate in International Walking World of School Day this year, just because, I mean, we tried, but schools were just overwhelmed at the beginning of the year and didn't take that on if they weren't in the comprehensive program. But we're gonna see if we can get people to do the Bike to School Day event, and we're gonna do posters and have promotional materials and all kinds of fun stuff for that day for the schools that participate. So if you have a kid at a school, even high schools, we're going to try to get some high schools to get in there. We'll see what happens, but if any contacts with schools that aren't already comprehensively participating in the program, tell them to reach out to me and I'll get them registered and on the list.
Thanks, Tina.
Thank you. And of course, we're doing education too. But those are the things that are happening community-wide for encouragement.
Thanks. All right, Town of Windsor, and then I'll turn it back over to you, Mona.
Thank you. I am jealous of Roanoke Park because our roundabout is still in construction and still it's moving along a little bit slower than we expected.
Still early for us to gain.
But we are finally towards the end of our Caltrans. We were awarded the Sustainable Community Transportation Planning Grant from Caltrans to develop Old Redwood Highway Corridor Enhancement Plan that was really well received by both the Planning Commission and the Town Council. So our final plan should be go to a final council acceptance in middle of February. So hopefully we'll have a great complete streets framework for all of Old Redwood Highway from Shiloh up to Star Road. And that's it for now. All right, so I was last to go, so we will move on to bicycle pedestrian counters, item 9.2. Dana and Chris.
So Chris had to jump off, so I'll take this and I'll try to be brief given the time, but I just wanted to remind everyone that SCTA does have our bicycle and pedestrian counter loan program. Our equipment is available. We have 3 full sets if you wanted to count bicycles and pedestrians, and then we have another set of bicycle tubes as well. So if you are interested in utilizing those, please contact me or Chris, and we will put you on the calendar for the time period that you want to use them for, and work with your staff to install the equipment. I know that, I did want to start this conversation. I think we could probably continue it into our next meeting, but I think that there are some jurisdictions that are starting to talk about doing some permanent counters in certain locations. So I thought it would be good to have a discussion about that, and maybe we could do that at the next meeting, but just to see if there's any interested in coordinating on either information sharing for what folks are looking at in terms of permanent installations, or possibly looking at joint procurements for that equipment. So I see Nancy's hand up.
I wasn't sure if you're done yet or not. So I know, I think Bjorn, who works for me, he's asked in talk with Chris about, trying to establish some sort of a more regular count program for the city. And so, I don't know if all the cities, one mechanism that we use is we have an annual count contract that actually goes out and collects vehicle counts for us throughout the city, and they've been suspended because of the shutdown over the last year and a half, but now they're back, and as part of the turning movement counts, the contract head counts. So I was just curious if other jurisdictions have, how are they attacking bike and ped counts, within their jurisdictions, and is there any way that we could, use the resources with SCTA?
Nancy, I'm not sure if part of what you were saying got cut off. About you.
No, I just was wondering what other cities are doing. No, I was just, and I don't, I was just wondering what other cities are doing, and if it made sense. I know that Bjorn has worked and has with Chris Barney, and Chris has been very helpful, and so I just don't know if there's an opportunity to have a more of a conversation about, because you look at all these projects, we put on all these bike and ped projects, but are we monitoring the count information that goes along with them? And I know for our bike and ped plan, one of our goals is our mode shift goal, right? So right now we use that, what is that American census survey data, but see, that only captures folks that are on, commuting to work, right? It doesn't really look at, the recreational cyclist, or for sure, pedestrians, right? So we don't really feel that's a truly accounts for all the active modes trips that are made within the city. So that's why we think that having the counts might be a better reflection on really how are we moving the needle in terms of active modes and those trips being made by not the traditional vehicle within the city. So that's kind of an underlying and overarching goal on why we want to pursue continuing counts for bikes and peds in a more comprehensive manner.
All right, thank you. Oh, Edie's hand's raised.
Oh, just gonna answer Nancy's question. Are jurisdictions doing anything? We're doing nothing. So that answers that question. But not to say that there may not be an appropriate time and opportunity in preparation for the bike ped master plan update. So, so noted, Nancy, and maybe this will come up as a need, and that we just have to address to make the preparing for the bike ped master plan, to be more prepared. Thanks.
Thanks. So I think it might be useful to, maybe even keep this as a standing item under updates, just to re-engage in this conversation through this committee. If that sounds okay to folks, I think that it might be useful moving forward.
Sure, Dana, that sounds good to me. I mean, it's just a reminder to us, and we can choose to, I think Edie's brought up a really good point about as you at a county level move forward with the bike plan update, and others, I think Petaluma, there may be some other jurisdictions working on their plan updates. I think it's just a reminder for us, which is, I think it's a good thing.
Great.
All right, thank you. And finally, there is 9.3 bike share discussion.
I'll just give a brief update on the Marin and Sonoma County program. We are still working through the planning phase. There was a little bit of a delay, so there's some change in staff with the vendor, but we are getting everything sorted out and making sure that they have the status of where they are in terms of permitting applications and confirming site plans with all of the jurisdictions involved. We're expecting to be able to wrap up that process probably by early March. So we should have more of an update at our next CBPAC meeting, but we'll be meeting with our working group tomorrow and discussing more with the jurisdictions involved in the program.
Okay, and we're down to item 10. Any other business comments or announcements from anybody? And if not, we will adjourn at 3:11.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you all.